In the grand dining hall of the Zarian Empire, silver chandeliers floated like frozen stars. Every wall shimmered with blue light, and golden plates reflected the glow of crystal flames. At the center table sat the alien Prince Kale, the only one in the room who never raised his eyes to see the beauty around him, because he was blind. Kale's skin was pale silver, smooth like metal. His eyes, pure white, stared forward without life. Every night, during the royal dinners, nobles whispered about him. They called him the sightless heir. Some pitied him. Most avoided him. And every evening, he sat alone at the table meant for kings. No one dared speak to him. Not even the servants. The Empress had ordered that the prince must learn silence and strength. But that silence was slowly breaking him. Kale listened to the sound of spoons, laughter, and whispers. Each noise a reminder that he was alone in a hall full of people. The voices faded when his name was mentioned, and he could feel the weight of eyes watching him, not with love, but with fear. Until one night, everything changed. That evening, a new servant was brought to the royal hall. A young human named Eli, from one of the distant colonies. He was nervous, holding a tray of shining plates that trembled slightly in his hands. The chief steward pointed to the prince and said, "You serve him. No talking. No mistakes." Eli nodded quickly, but when he approached the prince he froze. Kale looked unreal up close, his skin glowing faintly, his expression calm but distant. The food in front of him was untouched. Eli realized the prince couldn't see what was there. His hands were resting still beside the plate, waiting for a sound, maybe a word. Without thinking, Eli whispered softly, "Your food is here, your highness. It's roasted aveska fruit and spiced grain." For a moment, silence. Then the prince turned slightly, as if searching for the voice. "You're new," Kale said quietly. His voice was calm, deep, but tired. "What is your name?" "Eli, your highness," the boy said, lowering his head. "Eli," Kale repeated, almost tasting the name. "You are the first voice to speak to me in 2 cycles." Eli didn't know what to say. "Forgive me, sir. I didn't mean to break a rule." But the prince smiled faintly. "Then I'm glad you did." From that night, Eli was assigned to serve only Prince Kale. Each evening he described the food, the color of the room, the expressions on people's faces. He told the prince how the chandeliers glowed, how the nobles laughed, how the stars outside the palace windows looked like silver dust. Kale listened with quiet wonder, his blind eyes turning toward Eli's voice. "You see for me," he said one night. "You make this world real." Eli began to feel something strange, respect, maybe even friendship. He no longer saw Kale as a creature, or a royal. He saw him as someone trapped inside a world of light he could never touch. But their growing bond didn't stay hidden. One evening, as Eli guided Kale's hand to his glass of water, a sharp voice echoed from across the hall. "Human, do not touch the royal." The hall went silent. Every noble turned. The chief steward stormed forward, fury in his eyes. "You forget your place, boy. Eli protse." Kale's hand trembled slightly, still halfway to the glass. But before the steward could speak again, Kale rose from his seat. The room went cold. "He only helped me drink," Kale said firmly. His voice, calm but strong, echoed against the walls. "No one else has the courage to speak to me. Do not punish him for what you are too afraid to do." The steward bowed quickly, stepping back. But his eyes burned with quiet anger. After that night, rumors spread of the blind prince who defended a human servant. Some said the boy had bewitched him. Others whispered that Kale was changing. And in a way he was. Because every time Eli described something new, the shimmer of gold, the laugh of a child, the shape of the moon, Kale began to see through him. Not with eyes but with trust. Still deep inside the royal palace, forces were watching. The Empress herself heard whispers of her son's strange behavior. And she did not approve. For the first time in years, Kale felt alive. But soon, both he and Eli would discover that kindness had a price in the Empire of Light. The next morning, the palace was quieter than usual. Servants moved carefully, their eyes avoiding the silver doors of the royal dining hall. Everyone had heard about the night before. About how the blind Prince Kale had spoken in defense of a human servant. In the lower kitchen, Eli stood alone, waiting for orders. His hands still shook a little. He thought he would be punished, maybe even sent away. But instead, the head cook whispered, "The prince has asked for you. Only you." Eli's heart jumped. "He asked for me?" "Yes," the cook said, lowering her voice. "You must go now. And whatever happens, don't forget your manners." Eli nodded quickly, and made his way through the long golden corridors until he reached the dining hall. Kale was already there, seated alone again, but this time, his head turned as if he knew Eli was coming. "Good morning, Eli," Kale said with a faint smile. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't come." Eli bowed slightly. "I thought they might not let me, Your Highness." "They tried," Kale said softly. "But I insisted. You are my eyes after all." Eli protse. Those words, simple but heavy, made something stir in his chest. "Your eyes," he repeated. "Yes," Kale said. "You see what I cannot. You describe the world I've been kept away from." He paused. "Would you help me again today?" Eli nodded. "Of course, Your Highness." That morning, instead of a formal meal, Kale asked to walk in the royal gardens. It was the first time in years he had left the dining hall during daylight. 2 guards followed them from a distance, as Eli guided him carefully down the marble steps. The sunlight touched Kale's silver skin, and for a moment he seemed to glow. He tilted his face upward. "Describe it to me," he said quietly. Eli looked around. The sky is bright blue, with long white clouds like trails of smoke. There are golden flowers in the garden, and the fountain looks like it's made of glass. Kale smiled faintly. "And the people?" "Most of them are watching us," Eli said with a small laugh. "They don't know what to think." "I can feel their eyes," Kale whispered. "They think I'm strange. Broken." Eli hesitated, then said softly, "I don't think you're broken, sir. You're just different." Kale turned toward his voice, his white eyes calm but curious. "And you, Eli? Do you think different means weak?" Eli shook his head. "No. I think different means special." For a long time, Kale didn't answer. He simply stood there, listening to the sound of water and wind, as if memorizing every piece of it. But not everyone was pleased by what they saw. From one of the palace balconies, Lady Neria, the Empress's advisor, watched the 2 of them. Her eyes narrowed. "The boy is getting too close," she said coldly. "The Empress will not like this." Later that night, in the throne chamber filled with blue firelight, she stood before the Empress herself, a tall figure draped in golden armor, her face calm and unreadable. "The prince spends every waking hour with the human," Lady Neria said. "He even allows him to touch his hand. It's unseemly." The Empress said nothing for a long time. Then her eyes, sharp and bright as stars, turned toward her. "Perhaps this boy can be useful," she said slowly. "Let him serve. Let my son believe he is free. We will see what he reveals when he begins to trust." Lady Neria bowed deeply. "As you wish, my Empress." That same evening, Kale and Eli dined together again, this time in a smaller, quieter chamber. A single candle flickered between them. "Tell me something," Kale said after a while. "What is it like to see stars?" Eli smiled softly. "They look like tiny lights far away. Some blink, some don't. When you look long enough, it feels like they're moving." Kale leaned closer, his expression filled with quiet wonder. "I've heard the stars sing," he whispered. "Not with sound, but with vibration. Maybe that's how I see them." Eli tilted his head. "You can feel them?" Kale nodded slowly. "When I was young, before they made me wear these walls of gold, I could feel everything. The stars, the air, even the heartbeat of people near me. Then they told me it was wrong. That an emperor must not feel." Eli frowned. "Why would they say that?" "Because," Kale said with sadness, "feeling makes you weak in a world built on power." For a long time, neither of them spoke. The candle flame swayed gently between them, painting light across Kale's silver face. When the meal ended, Kale reached out and said quietly, "Thank you, Eli, for giving me my eyes, and for giving me something more." Eli smiled. "What's that?" Kale's lips curved faintly. "Hope." But just outside the door, in the shadows, someone was listening. Lady Neria's reflection flickered on the glass wall. She whispered into a small device, her tone cold and sharp. "The bond is growing, my Empress. she said. Shall I end it? The answer came through the device, calm and cruel. Not yet, said the Empress. Let the boy believe he's saving him. When the time comes, we will take everything. The palace of Zaria was never truly silent. Even at night, when the golden torches dimmed and the corridors glowed blue under starlight, there were always whispers, the kind that slid through the air like ghosts. Eli was starting to notice them. Every time he walked down the servant halls, voices stopped. Eyes followed him. People who once smiled now turned away. Something had changed since he started serving Prince Kale. That evening, as Eli carried a tray toward the prince's chambers, he heard two servants whispering behind a pillar. They say the human has bewitched him, one murmured. They say he speaks to the prince like an equal, the other hissed. And that the Empress herself is watching. Eli froze, his heart racing. The Empress? Watching me? Before he could react, a guard appeared at the end of the hall. You, the guard barked. The prince is waiting. Move. Eli bowed his head and hurried forward, gripping the tray tightly. Inside the royal chamber, the air was cool and filled with the faint hum of energy. Silver curtains moved softly, though no wind entered from outside. Kale sat near the window, his head tilted slightly toward the sound of Eli's footsteps. You're late, Kale said gently. I'm sorry, Your Highness. There were people in the corridor, Eli replied. Kale smiled faintly. They whisper about us, don't they? Eli hesitated. Yes, they do. The prince sighed. Let them whisper. They've done it all my life. They call me cursed because I was born without sight. But I see things they never will. Eli placed the tray on the table and sat quietly for a moment. What do you see, Your Highness? Kale turned his head toward him. I see through sound, through feeling, through trust. You, Eli, you are bright. Your voice carries warmth. When you walk into a room, the air changes. Eli blushed slightly. You make it sound like magic. Maybe it is, Kale said softly. Later that night, the prince asked something unusual. Eli, will you tell me about your home? Eli smiled faintly. My home? It's nothing special. Just a small colony on the outer ring. Dusty air, metal huts, endless stars. Kale listened carefully. Did you ever look up at those stars and wonder if someone was looking back? Eli nodded. Every night. Kale's voice softened. Then maybe we were both looking at the same stars, wishing for someone to see us. Their words hung in the air, gentle and true. But outside the chamber door, a shadow moved. Lady Neria stood silently, listening through a thin energy field. Her eyes glowed faintly as she recorded every sound. The next day, the Empress summoned her. Report, said the Empress, seated upon her throne of silver and fire. The prince has grown close to the human boy, Lady Neria said coldly. Too close. He trusts him completely. The Empress's face remained calm, unreadable. And does the boy know who the prince truly is? Not yet, Neria replied. He believes the prince is merely blind. He does not know the secret. The Empress rose slowly, her golden armor shimmering. Good. Then we will use his trust. When the time comes, the boy will bring my son exactly where I need him. Neria bowed deeply. And if he resists? The Empress's lips curved into a cold smile. Then the boy will see what mercy means in this empire. That evening, when Eli entered the dining hall, he noticed something strange. The guards were doubled. The nobles who once ignored Kale now stared openly. It felt like the entire palace was waiting for something. Kale, however, seemed calm. Eli, he said softly, I have something to ask of you. Yes, Your Highness? Kale reached out, finding Eli's hand. Tomorrow is the star alignment ceremony. I must stand before the Empire and prove my strength. But I cannot walk the steps alone. Will you guide me? Eli hesitated. If I walk with you in front of everyone, they'll see me as your equal. They'll hate me even more. I know, Kale said quietly. But I need you. I trust only you. Eli looked into his white, sightless eyes. Then I'll be there. I'll guide you. A faint smile touched Kale's lips. Thank you, Eli. You are braver than anyone I've ever known. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He stared out his small window at the stars above. Something felt wrong. He could almost feel the palace watching him. Then, just before dawn, he heard a whisper through his door. Human, a voice hissed. It was Lady Neria. Come with me. Eli prozze. Why? What's wrong? She smiled thinly. You want to help the prince, don't you? Then you must know the truth before tomorrow. Follow me. Against his better judgment, Eli followed her through the dark halls until they reached a hidden chamber beneath the palace. The air was thick with energy. Strange machines pulsed with light. At the center was a glass pod filled with blue mist, and inside it, a figure that looked almost identical to Prince Kale. Eli's eyes widened. What is that? Lady Neria's smile was sharp as ice. That boy is the real Prince Kale. Eli stepped back, trembling. No, that's not possible. He's alive. The one you serve, Neria interrupted coldly, is not the true heir. He is an experiment. A copy created after the real prince fell ill. Blind, obedient, controlled. Eli's heart pounded. You're lying. Am I? She said, pressing a button. The glass pod glowed brighter, revealing the motionless form inside. You've been serving a shadow boy. And tomorrow, when he stands before the Empire, he will die. Eli stumbled back, shock freezing his breath. No, he whispered. I won't let that happen. But Lady Neria's smile only grew colder. Try to stop it, and the Empress will end you both. As Eli ran from the chamber, one thought echoed in his mind, burning brighter than fear. If Kale is only a copy, why does he feel more human than anyone else in this palace? The next morning, the palace of Zaria shimmered like a jewel under the twin suns. Every hallway echoed with footsteps, every corner glowed with energy. The great event had arrived, the star alignment ceremony, the most sacred day of the Empire. On this day, the heir to the throne would stand beneath the rising constellations and receive the light of dominion, a power said to be given only to the true royal bloodline. But Eli's heart was heavy, because now he knew the truth. The prince he served, the one he cared for, was not the real heir. He was an experiment, a copy created to replace the sickly prince sealed inside the chamber below. And today that copy, the one who smiled, who listened, who trusted, was walking to his death. Kale stood in his chamber, dressed in gleaming silver robes. His blind eyes seemed calm, but his hands trembled slightly as Eli helped adjust the fabric. Does it look right? Kale asked softly. Eli swallowed hard. You look perfect, Your Highness. Kale smiled faintly. I can feel you're worried. Tell me why. Eli prozze. Should he tell him the truth? That he wasn't real? That the Empress planned to destroy him in front of the whole empire? His heart raced, but his words refused to come. Kale tilted his head slightly. You're afraid for me? Yes, Eli whispered. Kale placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. Then walk beside me. Let me borrow your courage one more time. Trumpets roared through the palace as thousands gathered in the grand hall. Floating platforms shimmered with light, and nobles from across the stars filled the balconies. In the center, a tall golden arch stood beneath the open ceiling, where the stars began to align in patterns of pure blue light. The Empress sat on her throne at the far end, silent and regal, her eyes like cold fire. When the guards opened the gates, Prince Kale entered, his steps slow, his chin high. Eli walked beside him, guiding him gently up the shining path. The hall went quiet. Whispers followed them. The blind one dares walk alone? Who is that human beside him? Eli ignored them all. His hand brushed the prince's arm, steady and firm. When they reached the arch, Kale stopped. Describe it to me, he whispered. Eli looked up. It's like the sky is opening. The stars are forming a crown of light above you. Kale smiled softly. Then let them see what a blind prince can become. The ceremony began. Lady Neria stepped forward with the ceremonial staff, her voice echoing through the chamber. By decree of the Empress, we present Prince Kale of the Zarian Empire to receive the light of dominion. Kale knelt, his silver robes glowing under the starlight. But Eli noticed something strange. The energy field beneath the arch was pulsing too strongly. The blue light was flickering red at the edges. He remembered what Neria had said. When he stands before the Empire, he will die. Eliasties tightened. Your Highness, wait. Too late. The energy beam struck. The hall exploded with blinding light. The crowd gasped as a wave of power swept across the chamber, shaking the golden pillars. Kale screamed, a sound Eli had never heard before, half pain, half defiance. The light surrounded him, twisting, searing through his veins. His silver skin glowed brighter, cracking like glass. Stop it! Eli shouted. You're killing him. The Empress rose slowly from her throne. Her voice was cold and calm. The light accepts only truth. If he is worthy, he will survive. But Eli saw it clearly. The light wasn't accepting Kale. It was destroying him. He ran forward through the guards, shouting, Kale, listen to me. You have to fight it. You're not what they say you are. You're real. Through the blinding storm, Kale's blind eyes turned toward the sound of Eli's voice. Eli. Yes, Eli yelled. It doesn't matter what they made you from. You are Prince Kale. You choose who you are. For a moment the light flickered. Kale raised his head. I choose. Then something incredible happened. The energy around him stopped burning. It began to bend. The red turned blue again. The crackling heat turned to soft light. Kale rose slowly, his form glowing brighter than the stars above. The nobles gasped. Even the Empress stepped back. Kale's blind eyes opened, and for the first time, they glowed with golden light. He could see. He turned toward the Empress. Mother, he said, his voice calm and powerful. You wanted control. But I am not your weapon. The Empress's face twisted with shock. Impossible. The experiment cannot. I am no experiment, Kale said, his voice echoing through the chamber. I am Kale, son of the stars. And this empire will no longer blind itself with lies. The blue energy burst outward, shattering the arch in a wave of light. Guards fell to the floor. The Empress shielded her face. When the brightness faded, Kale stood tall, his silver skin now glowing faint gold. Eli was beside him, eyes wide in awe. You can see me now, Eli whispered. Kale smiled softly. I always could. Just not like this. The crowd fell silent. For the first time in history, the people saw a prince who stood not for power, but for truth. But the Empress's voice broke the silence. You think you've won, she said darkly. You've only begun a war you cannot finish. Kale turned his head slightly. Then let it begin with me. He took Eli's hand and stepped forward toward the throne. The palace trembled, and above them, the stars blazed brighter than ever, as if the universe itself was watching. The great hall of the Zarian Empire was silent after the explosion of light. Smoke drifted through the air like mist. Shattered crystal lay scattered across the floor. At the center of it all stood Prince Kale, his once blind eyes now glowing gold. His silver robe shimmered with a faint, living light. Beside him stood Eli, shaken but unhurt. All around them, nobles stared in awe and fear. The impossible had happened. The blind experiment had survived the star alignment and awakened with sight. But one person wasn't amazed. The Empress was furious. Her cold eyes narrowed. So, you defied the light itself and lived. Tell me, my son. What are you now? Kale stood tall, his voice calm. Alive. Free. No longer your puppet. The Empress's hand tightened on the edge of her throne. You speak like a rebel. You dare stand against your own blood. Eli could feel the tension in the air. Guards slowly moved forward, their weapons glowing. Kale did not move. I am not against my blood, Kale said quietly. Only against the chains it built. The Empress rose, her armor gleaming like fire. Then you are no longer my son. She raised her hand, and from the floor, black energy erupted like smoke, forming shadows in armor. They moved with a whispering hiss, their faces hidden behind cracked masks. Eli's heart pounded. What are they? Kale's eyes hardened. The Imperial Shadows. My mother's personal guards. They exist only to destroy those who defy her. The first shadow lunged. Kale lifted his hand, and light burst from his palm. The creature screamed as golden fire tore through its form, vanishing in smoke. Another came. Then another. Eli ducked behind a pillar as Kale fought, his body moving with unnatural grace. Every strike of light seemed to burn brighter than before. Yet with each attack, Kale's breathing grew heavier. The Empress watched coldly. Your gift burns your body, my son. You were not meant to survive the light of dominion. It will destroy you from within. Kale's voice trembled, but his eyes blazed. Then I'll burn for something worth saving. He thrust his hand forward, sending a wave of light across the hall that shattered the last of the shadows. The floor cracked beneath his feet. When the smoke cleared, Kale dropped to one knee, gasping. Eli ran to him. Kale, you're bleeding. Kale shook his head weakly. It's not blood. It's light. It's leaking out of me. Eli could see faint golden veins glowing beneath his skin. The light that had given him power was now trying to consume him. The Empress stepped down from her throne, her steps echoing through the hall. You are dying, Kale, just as the real prince did before you. You are not my heir. You are my failure. Eli rose, anger flashing in his eyes. You're wrong. He's more of a prince than you'll ever be a queen. Guards turned their weapons toward him instantly, but Kale raised a hand. A barrier of light shimmered around Eli. Enough. Kale's voice thundered through the hall. You call me an experiment, but I have chosen to be more. You call me blind, but I can see your cruelty clearer than anyone. The Empress's face darkened. You think the people will follow you? Kale's gaze lifted. No, but they will follow the truth. Then something unexpected happened. From the balconies above, the nobles began to whisper, not in fear, but in awe. He speaks like the true heir. The light obeyed him. He might be chosen by the stars. The Empress heard the whispers and her fury deepened. Silence, she roared, her voice echoing like thunder. But the murmurs only grew louder. Eli stepped closer to Kale, whispering, They're starting to believe you. Kale nodded weakly. Then we must give them hope, before I lose this light completely. He turned toward the people and raised his glowing hand. My mother taught you to obey through fear, he said, voice trembling but strong. I ask you now, to stand through courage. The empire doesn't belong to those who command light, but to those who carry it inside. A soft blue glow spread across the hall. The people bowed their heads. For the first time, they were not kneeling to the Empress, but to him. The Empress screamed in rage. Enough! I gave you life. I can take it away. She lifted her hand, summoning a massive spear of dark energy. But before she could strike, a glowing barrier surrounded Kale and Eli. The Empress's power crashed against it, shattering the walls around them. Yet the barrier held. Kale looked at her sadly. You can destroy my body, mother, but not what I've become. The golden light flared one last time, bursting through the hall like a sunrise. When the brilliance faded, Kale and Eli were gone, vanished into the air. Outside the palace, far beyond the city walls, the two appeared beside the edge of a crystal lake. Kale collapsed to his knees exhausted. His light flickered weakly. Eli caught him. Kale, don't you dare die on me now. Kale smiled faintly. You were right, Eli. Being different doesn't mean being weak. Eli shook his head, eyes wet. You saved everyone. You gave them hope. Kale's hand glowed faintly as he touched Eli's face. You gave me sight. Without you, I'd still be lost in the dark. Eli gripped his hand tightly. You're not lost. Not anymore. Kale looked toward the distant stars. Then maybe now, I can finally see what lies beyond the throne. And with that, the golden light in his eyes dimmed, but his face remained peaceful, as if he was finally free. The last glow of the starborn prince faded beneath the crystal lake. The waves shimmered once, then stilled. Silence fell. Eli held Kale's lifeless body in his arms, tears streaking his face. You can't leave me, he whispered. You promised to see the world, with your own eyes. But the golden veins beneath Kale's skin had gone dark. The boy who defied an empire was gone. Or so Eli thought. Far beyond the material world, in the endless twilight between stars, Kale awakened. He found himself lying on a field of silver sand, beneath a broken sky where fragments of constellations floated like shattered glass. A cold wind swept across his face. When he opened his eyes, they no longer glowed gold, but silver. He sat up slowly, disoriented. Where am I? A voice answered from behind. You stand in the realm of the fallen, child of light. Kale turned. A tall figure stood upon the horizon, cloaked in shadows, with eyes that burned like dying suns. Half of its face was human, the other half, mechanical, carved with celestial runes. Kale rose to his feet. Who are you? The figure's voice echoed through the empty space. Once, I was called Seraph Valen, the first guardian of the Starborn Gate. I too was created by the light, and cast aside when I questioned it. Kale felt a strange connection in the words, a familiarity. So you're like me? The being nodded. Yes. Another failed experiment. Kale's memories returned in flashes. The Empress, the palace, Eli's voice calling his name, and the explosion of light that tore him from his world. Did I die? He asked quietly. Valen looked toward the broken constellations. You transcended. Few mortals survived the light of dominion. But your human half, your empathy, shielded your soul. You crossed into the realm where all forsaken creations come to rest. Kale took a step forward, his boots sinking into the soft silver dust. The realm of the fallen. The ones my mother said were erased? Yes, Valen said, his tone deepening. The truth she hid. The Zarian Empire was built not by gods, but by failures like us. The Empress uses fragments of the light to create her perfect heirs, her soldiers, her angels. And when they break, she buries them here. Kale looked around, and for the first time, he saw them. Figures, countless and silent, scattered across the endless dunes. Some were glowing faintly. Some were twisted into shapes of sorrow, half light, half shadow. Their eyes were empty, yet watching. The fallen, Kale whispered. They are your brothers and sisters, said Valen. Children who carried the spark of creation, then were cast away. Their light dims because they've forgotten who they were. Kale's chest ached. Then maybe they need someone to remind them. He stepped forward, raising his hands. The faintest flicker of light returned to his palms, dim, unstable, but real. As he spread his fingers, small motes of gold drifted from his skin, like fireflies in the dark. Wherever the light touched, one of the fallen stirred, turning its head toward him, whispering faint echoes in languages long lost. Valen watched in silence. Impossible, you still carry the living spark. Kale's voice trembled, but his resolve grew. Maybe the light didn't choose me to be a weapon. Maybe it chose me to bring them home. The sky rippled. The shards of constellations began to tremble. A low hum filled the air, like the sound of awakening stars. Valen's eyes widened. Careful. The light's core can sense movement here. If it detects you, it will come for us both. Kale didn't stop. Then let it come. The realm began to quake. From the horizon, massive shapes rose. Colossal figures of armor made from obsidian and starlight, their faces blank and glowing. The wardens of the abyss. Sentinels of the Empress's forgotten realm. Valen unsheathed a blade of pure energy, shaped like a wing. If we fall here, our light will scatter forever. Kale looked at him, determination in his silver eyes. Then we rise together. He reached down, pressing his glowing hand into the sand, and from beneath, the fallen began to rise. Thousands of them, their forms igniting with faint light, voices whispering in unison. We are not forgotten. The wardens roared, unleashing waves of dark energy. Kale lifted both hands, his aura expanding. Light burst outward, shielding the fallen, deflecting the darkness like a storm of stars. Valen fought beside him, his blade singing through the void. Together they struck, their combined power shaking the very sky. The constellations shattered fully, then reassembled into new patterns, forming a bridge of light that stretched upward into infinity. Valen looked up in awe. You've opened the gate. Kale's voice echoed, distant but powerful. Not a gate to return, but to remember. He looked back at the fallen. Come with me. It's time to reclaim the light they stole from us. The army of the fallen stepped onto the glowing bridge. As they walked, their broken forms began to heal. The light of creation flowed through them again. Valen knelt before Kale, his mechanical half flickering with emotion. You've done what none of us could. You've made the fallen rise. Kale placed a hand on his shoulder. Then rise with me. We're not experiments anymore. Valen smiled faintly, his voice soft. You remind me of the first light before it broke. As Kale ascended the bridge, the stars around him began to sing. A hum that resonated through eternity. The Empress would feel this tremor in her throne room. far away, as her empire began to shake. The light she once controlled was returning to those she cast out. The bridge of light trembled between worlds. At its end, the shining gates of the Zarian palace glowed like a dying sun. Prince Kale, no longer blind, stood at the front, his silver eyes glowing with purpose. Behind him walked thousands of the fallen, once forgotten, now reborn in light. Their voices whispered together like a sacred wind. They had returned to the world that cast them away. And at its heart waited the Empress. The grand palace stood silent. The crystal towers, once symbols of perfection, flickered weakly. The very sky above the empire had changed, its golden hue replaced by pale silver clouds. In her throne room, the Empress watched the tremor in the heavens. Her once radiant face was tense, eyes glowing a deep crimson. Around her, the High Council knelt, whispering in fear. "Your Majesty," one stammered. "The light from the outer realm. It's rising. The gate has opened." The Empress stood slowly, her long robe flowing like molten glass. "Then my son has returned." Her voice was calm, but beneath it, fury burned like a storm. When Kale stepped into the throne hall, the guards did not move. They could feel the power that radiated from him. A calm, living energy that made even their armor hum. Eli walked beside him. Somehow, the boy had survived the explosion, carried back by the same light that saved Kale. His eyes widened in awe. "We're really back." Kale nodded gently. "Home, but not the same." As the massive doors opened, the Empress turned. Her gaze met her son's, one filled with ancient power, the other with new understanding. "My child," she said softly, stepping down from her throne. "You have seen the abyss, yet you return with its corruption." "Why?" Kale's voice was calm but firm. "I saw the truth. You built this empire from the broken, from the lives you cast away." "They were weak," she replied sharply. "You were weak. I saved you from chaos." "You blinded me," Kale said. "Not to protect me, but to hide your lies." The Empress's eyes flared. "I gave you form. I gave you light." Kale took a step forward. The air trembled. "And you turned it into a weapon." The fallen entered behind him. Their light filled the room, rising along the pillars and ceiling until the palace glowed with an ethereal silver hue. The Empress's red light clashed against it, sparks of gold and crimson flickering like fire and water colliding. "You dare bring impurities into my domain?" she hissed. Kale raised his hand. "They are not impurities. They are your children." The room went silent. The Empress's lips tightened. "They were my failures." "Then let them show you what failure truly means," Kale whispered. He spread his arms. The fallen began to hum, a deep, resonant vibration that made the ground shake. Beams of light burst from their bodies, merging into one great wave of radiance that struck the throne. The Empress lifted her hands, summoning her own power. Her form changed, her body growing larger, surrounded by blazing crimson light, like a goddess forged from stars. "You cannot defeat me, child," she roared. "I am the first light." Kale looked up at her, calm. "Then see what your light has become." Their powers clashed. Gold and crimson collided in a blinding storm that cracked the palace walls. Towers outside shattered into dust. The skies screamed as lightning tore across the horizon. Eli shielded his eyes, crying out, "Kale." But Kale stood firm within the storm. Every blast of energy from the Empress hit him, and was absorbed, purified, and reflected back as silver light. "You cannot purify me," she screamed. "I am eternal." Kale's voice echoed through the chaos. "Eternal? No. Only endless and lonely." With one final surge, he released the energy he had gathered from the fallen. The silver light burst outward, swallowing the crimson flame. For a heartbeat, the world went white. Then silence. When the light faded, the throne room was gone. Only open sky remained, and the soft hum of wind. Kale stood where the Empress once had, surrounded by the quiet ruins of the old empire. Eli limped toward him. "Kale, is it over?" Kale looked upward. The clouds had parted, and above them, a single golden star shone brighter than all others. "She's gone," he said softly. "But her light is free now." The fallen bowed their heads. Their bodies began to dissolve into motes of silver, drifting upward toward the heavens. What's happening? Eli asked. Kale smiled faintly. They're returning home. The realm of the fallen is no longer a prison, it's part of the stars again. Eli froned. And you? Kale turned toward him, the light fading gently from his eyes. My place is with them. But your place is here. Tell their story, Eli. Tell them we weren't monsters. We were the proof that even the broken can shine. Eli's voice trembled. Don't go. Kale placed a glowing hand on his shoulder. You were my eyes when I had none. Now be the voice of those who cannot speak. A warm light surrounded him. Slowly his form began to rise, turning into radiant dust. As Eli watched, Kale's final words echoed softly in the air. Even in darkness, the light remembers its name. The empire rebuilt itself, not with fear, but with hope. A statue of the blind prince stood in the central plaza, hand outstretched toward the stars. And every night, the people of Zaria looked up at the sky and saw a new constellation, one shaped like an open eye, shining silver. They called it the Prince's Light.